You ever received an email or a Slack message that you know you need to reply to, but you just cannot be bothered in that moment? So you just let it sit for a while. Replying wouldn't be difficult, but that's not the point. There's friction in having to think, type, format, and send a reply. I mean, if you hit pause and zoom out, it's much easier than having to write a letter and tie it to your trusty carrier pigeon. But when you spend so much time working at your computer, these things drain energy. There's always this level of friction between you getting the words out of your head and into the computer. Sure, you can try to increase your typing speed, but even if you do manage to improve the typing speed, you're always limited by the amount of caffeine in your system and how quick you can get those little fingers moving. But what if instead of think, type, format, and send, you could just think, say, and send? Because over the last couple of months, that's exactly what I've been doing. And in this video, I want to share with you a AI tool that I actually think is worth the hype and something that has completely changed my day-to-day workflow, and it might just change yours too. So let me explain what I mean. The tool I've been using is called Whisperflow. And the easiest way to explain what Whisperflow is it's essentially just a dictation tool with AI built in. So it's a dictation tool where you can speak to your computer or your phone, but it actually works. To begin with, I thought, okay, cool, this might be a useful gimmicky kind of tool, but not something that was actually essential, and definitely not something that I'd be willing to pay $15 a month for. That was until I actually started using the tool, and now I can't live without it. And before I show you through how it works, just a quick note, I am not being paid by this company to say this. This has personally just been one of those things that has completely changed the way I work. So let me show you through exactly how this works. Ready, so now let's jump into Whisperflow. Now you can see I've been using this for the last 7 weeks, and I've dictated 146,000 words. Now the first thing you want to do here is go and set up your hotkey. Now for me, I have Control set as my hotkey. So if I hold down Control and start speaking into my microphone, it will start dictation. And when I let go of Control, it will dictate that thing and add it wherever my cursor is. Now if we just jump over to Notion and do this, I can show you it in action. So if I go into here, click into this area here, hold down Control and say, hello world, you can see that Hello World has appeared. Now if I hit enter and then just double click Control, now every single thing that I say should be dictated into this text area. You can see inside of here, even got the last little piece I was saying about double clicking Control, and then everything else is formatted perfectly in here. So straight out of the box, it probably gets about 96% of things correct. And if you've ever tried your phone dictation, you'll know how bad this technology typically is. But to get it from 96 to 99%, the tool has adaptive learning. So every time I dictate something and then I go back in and correct that thing that it dictated, so maybe it got a word incorrect, or maybe it got someone's name misspelled, what it'll do is it'll ask me if I want to add that to my dictionary. That time, the next time I say that thing, it's going to be correct. As you can see, you're essentially using dictation and AI to auto-learn how you speak, which is then going to improve the accuracy of the tool. And sure, word-for-word dictation is pretty cool, but the thing for me that is being a complete game changer with this app is how it is context aware to which application you're currently running. So if I'm responding to an email, it'll format it completely differently than if I was to be talking to ChatGPT or if I was responding to a message inside of Slack. So let me show you this in action. So I'm currently in my email tool, which is Superhuman, and I want to compose an email. I'm going to select who I'm going to send this to, and then I'm going to go and create a subject. So for this, whenever I'm writing like 1 or 2 words, I am still typically just typing them because I find it a little bit easier than actually going through the process of clicking on this tool. So I'm just going to say project proposal as the subject line. Now, what I want to do is I want to just format an email inside of here. So I'm going to say, hey Simone, it was great to chat to you earlier. Thank you very much for taking the time, and we would love to work on this project with you and your team. I'll send across a proposal for this project by end of day tomorrow. Cheers, Stephen. Okay, so you can see inside of here, I even messed up in this thing, and you can see the way it has formatted everything. It's also used some adaptive formatting here, so you can actually see that it's used a smiley face. I've never seen that before. I wonder if it's because I had a slight laugh in the actual dictation here. But everything from this is perfectly formatted for the email, and I would be fine just sending this. So maybe there's like 1 or 2 little things I want to clean up, but overall this was so much easier than having to go through, compose an email and do everything, all I had to do was just think, what did I want to say to this person? And then just kind of edit this based on, any of these little tweaks I would need to make. I could then just go hit send, and that's an email done. Also, one thing that's really cool about email in particular is if you're emailing someone who has a name that's maybe a little bit hard to spell, hard to say, something that you wouldn't expect it to pick up, because it is context aware, it will use the name that you're sending it to. So as long as it sounds like that name that you're saying, it will pick up that that is the name you want to say, and it's not just like the random words or something like that. Now, it's not just emails that I've been using this for. One thing I found it incredibly useful for is vibe coding. So using Cursor to code, basically, because I only partially know how to code, but Cursor knows very, very well how to code. What I can do is I can just prompt the agent and talk to it over and over again to build things. So for example, what I can do is go into the context window inside of Cursor and say, hey, I want to build a personal website. Can you build the outline for this website in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Hit enter, and Cursor starts doing its magic. This is so much more fun than having to type everything, because you just kind of get a vibe. Like, you can listen to music, you can then just start coding, Cursor's just building for you. Crazy time to be alive. Or for me, one of the biggest unlocks is being able to just completely ramble to ChatGPT and it format all of that rambling into something cohesive that I can use. For example, what I did for this video is I just talked to ChatGPT for a few minutes and outlined absolutely everything that I wanted it to cover in this video. So what I was doing is just saying, hey, take everything that I talk about here, structure it into a cohesive bullet pointed list, and then I can start to manipulate that bullet pointed list and outline this video. For me, all I need to do is know exactly what I'm going to cover in this video, and then it just formats it perfectly. And it's so much easier to do it this way than it is to type, because it's much more natural to speak than it is to type. And what's really great about using it for an LLM like ChatGPT or Claude is that it can do all of the work in between. It can do all of the cleaning up and the logic and just figuring out these little details. Especially if you're working through an idea, I found this a very helpful way to get to a breakthrough. And if you write a lot, what you could do is use this to dictate roughly what you want to say, because whenever you're getting started on something that you're writing, it's really difficult to face a blank screen. But if you can get your ideas out very, very quickly by just speaking them and then adjust and start to rework that and just continue to refine it over time, it's a much easier way to get past that initial blank screen problem. Now, one drawback to using this tool, which I didn't think about in the beginning, was how it's really difficult to use this in public without seeming a little bit crazy. See, when you're in a coffee shop and you just start to randomly speak out loud and you're just rambling, it's a little bit weird and it feels a little bit awkward. So it's not something that I'm personally doing, which is actually a little bit strange, because if you're using it at all times and then you go out the house and you're in some public space, you kind of just intuitively want to continue using it. And of course, there are a bunch of other alternative tools, and I know Super Whisper is a tool that a lot of people use, but I'm not going to pretend that I've used it before, so I'm just going to talk about WhisperFlow. And one of the really useful things to note is that whenever I'm dictating to WhisperFlow with my AirPods, it is considerably worse than if I just use my Max mic or if I use my Shure mic. Now, if you've ever been on the end of a call and someone is using their AirPods as the microphone, you'll know how bad the AirPod microphone is. So it's just something to note that if you're not getting very good results, then you need to change the mic input, because the AirPod mic is noticeably worse. On the surface, it probably seems like quite a small difference being able to go from typing over to speaking to your computer. But after using it for the last 7 weeks, it is something that I cannot see myself stopping using anytime soon, because it has completely changed my workflow and it has made me way more productive and way more efficient. Because even just doing some basic maths based on the fact that I typically put in 60 hours a week, even if I just spent 25% of my working time typing, that would be 15 hours a week that I'm typing, and I am not a particularly quick typer. So it's not crazy to think that this would double my typing speed, which would save me 7.5 hours every single week of typing. Even on the low end of it just being maybe 2 to 3 hours every single week that I'm saving using this tool, it all of a sudden makes $15 a month not sound that expensive. And an unexpected benefit of using this tool isn't just that it makes me actually work faster, it makes me reply to messages much quicker. Because it's so much easier now, I'm more likely to reply to people quickly. And as someone building a business, talking to people is quite an important thing. Anyway, hopefully you try out this tool. As I mentioned, I am not affiliated with this in any way at all. And let me know exactly how you find it.